Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Legal and General Just Covered podcast, where we talk to intermediaries, advisors and other people in our industry about the intermediary space. My name's Wayne.
And I'm Hazel, and today we are joined by Charley, who is Head of New Build at The Mortgage Mum. So Charley's going to speak to us about flexibility in the workplace and a huge amount about all the different incentives that new build schemes currently have on offer. So Charley, welcome to our podcast. Thank you for coming in. How are things with you at the moment?
Yeah, great. Thank you. It's lovely to be out in the big city. I wish it was sunny like it was last week though, because it's freezing today. But no, very good.
Yeah, I've definitely had a bit of a false spring, haven't we?
But
And so do you want to start off, Charley? Tell us a little bit about your career. I'd love to know how it started and any of the kind of either big wins you've had or challenges along the way.
Sure. So I first got qualified as an advisor in 2015. And that was something I just sort of fell into. So it wasn't something that I thought I would do. It was, interestingly, what my mum did and what my auntie did. So we had mortgages in the family. And I returned from maternity leave with my first child, and I used to work at HSBC. And they basically had this scheme where you could join it and get your qualifications to be a mortgage advisor. So I think I was probably back from maternity leave for about 3 weeks, just kind of settling into working mum life. And then kind of was snowballed and said, do you want to do this? You have to go back part-time, which was something that I was willing to do at that time. And yeah, then they put me back on study leave. So I was out of the office again for a few months to get qualified. And then I worked at HSBC as a mortgage advisor there for a couple of years before I left. And I think the barrier of being sort of only having access to one lender and having to kind of get to know my clients and then say no. And then it was a school friend who had said no to a mortgage because of the property that she was looking to buy. And then I remember like 3 or 4 months later seeing her complete on the same house. And I thought, I want to help people a bit more. So that's when I decided to become a broker, really. So that was in 2018. And that was after I had my son. And huge learning curve, because obviously it's great having access to all these lenders, but suddenly you need to learn them all. So that was a huge kind of journey there. And I really found it quite hard when I first started being a broker because of the kind of lack of flexibility that we had in the industry at that time, or certainly how I felt it, with 2 young children as well, because I remember that for a good year, my childcare costs were more than what I was earning. So it was really, you have to have this kind of huge drive. And it's basically because I had to be in the office from 9:15 in the morning until 5:15 in the afternoon. And looking back now, I think that is crazy why I would do that. Wasn't necessarily busy enough to warrant sitting there in the office, sometimes sat there doing nothing, paying for someone else to sort of look after my children as well, which was quite, the mum guilt was absolutely huge back then as well. However, so I sort of left that role to go into an employed role with income reasons, basically, because it was just so hard to try and balance that with childcare and things. And that's when I started working in new build mortgages. So that was really exciting, really intense, and almost felt like I was on a little bit of a conveyor belt, because I had kind of qualified leads that were booked into my diary, and it was kind of sign up after sign up. Very fast paced in the new build world, which I mean we all know anyway. But it did get to the point again where I felt like I wasn't seeing my children. And I tried a couple of different things, but I was following The Mortgage Mum on Instagram. And I was at a space where I remember one day my daughter came into our office and she said, to me just before my appointment was starting. She said, "When are you going to stop working, mummy?" And my heart broke because she was breaking, and she was like, "You're home. Yes, I'm working from home, but I am sat in an office and not really speaking to my kids because I'm shutting the door and speaking to clients."
Very difficult to explain that conceptually to children, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm here, but I'm not here. And it was really, really difficult. And it's, again, still this issue with flexibility. Even though I'm working from home, my appointments were booked for me and I wasn't allowed to change the times of those appointments, which was really, really difficult. But this particular time, my daughter had said to me, "Oh, I want to, she basically, when are you going to stop working?" she said. And I had to just start this appointment. So I sort of had to usher her out of the room and say, "I've got an appointment now, but Daddy's in the living room. Go and speak to Daddy." And I remember being sat there on the computer, and I could hear my daughter crying about how much she missed me in the room next door to me. And I had to just sit there with a smile on my face and do my appointment.
Oh, the resilience of that must have been so tough.
I mean,
it didn't kind of keep a hold on.
Oh, it didn't feel like there was any kind of strength there at the time. It was heartbreaking. But even now, it makes me emotional, like thinking about it and talking about it. And that was the minute where I thought, this isn't right. And I started looking at other options. And I'm talking completely out of the industry because I'm thinking I've tried different things, nothing's working around my family. And I actually got a job at my child's school. And I had the contract, the offer of employment, and it just meant, we could do it. And it would mean I'm around for all the school holidays and things like that. They had free wraparound care, so the kids would be breakfast club, after school club, but at least I'm here. But it would just mean no luxuries, no holidays. Just really, it would be a big struggle for us to kind of make enough cutbacks to make that work. And I was following the Mortgage Mum on Instagram, and I was just thinking, how are these women doing it? And there was one particular day, because the appointments were all booked for you, where I had just after 1:00 in the afternoon an appointment booked in my diary for 3:00 that day. And I remember thinking, I can't do that. I need to pick the kids up from school. And so I phoned my manager at the time and said to him that I've had this appointment drop into my diary. It's at 3:00 today. I can't do it. I've got the kids to pick up from school. And all that phone call was asking for permission to move that appointment later, to contact the client and say, can I do it at this time of day instead? Which most clients, when you call them, they are flexible. It would be fine.
A lot of them understand. They've got kids themselves. I mean, I've been a mortgage advisor. The majority of people you see have children, or actually, as long as they're getting the mortgage appointment, they're fairly happy.
Yeah,
people are reasonable, aren't they?
Yeah, and what's 6:00 in the evening compared to 3:00 in the afternoon? It's not going to delay your mortgage application. It's going to be in the next day, as it always was, that company. It would be absolutely fine.
I guess getting a mortgage appointment the same day within a couple of hours, they were probably quite surprised at that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I called that manager, and he said to me, well, you can't move the appointment. And he sort of huffed and got a bit frustrated with me. And I thought, what do you expect me to do? Just leave the kids at school and just not pick them up, or just phone the school and say, can you just look after them for a bit longer? It doesn't work like that. You can't do that. And I remember he gave the appointment to one of my other colleagues within the team, and he phoned me back and he said to me, look, I've reallocated this appointment on this occasion, but next time you need to be more flexible. And I said, okay, and then thank you, and got off the phone. And I look back now and I think, if I was the person I am today, I would have pushed back on that and sort of said, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? And he said, I've had children before. I was very lucky because my wife did all this stuff, but I know how you feel. And I think, well, if you had someone doing all that stuff, you don't know how I feel. So
not what you want to be hearing at that moment.
Exactly. But I'm just feeling guilty because I didn't do that appointment. But yeah, I was just like, this was all around the sort of the similar time. And then I got this job at the school, and I thought, that's it. I'm gonna give it up because it just doesn't work. And And then I was exploring a few different opportunities. I was going for an interview to help with apprenticeships at a local college. And I was on the way there and I saw a message on Instagram pop up from Sarah, from the Mortgage Mum, who was replying to my message that morning, which was, how in the world are you doing this? Like, is this some sort of kind of Instagram filter where everyone's kind of saying, oh, look at us, we're perfect. How are you doing this flexibly? And she basically voice noted me back. We love a voice note at the Mortgage Mum, so much more personal. And that's when we got talking. And yeah, I mean, the rest is history. Joined the Mortgage Mum January 2023. We have a lot of like media opportunities. So I've managed to go on the telly and radio and different things like that, which is, just really exciting, and things that I'd never thought I would do as part of my career anyway. And with my new build experience that I'd had, I think everything happens for a reason. And I think that was kind of into the fire, really, really difficult job, but a lot of knowledge kind of comes from that sort of
you were about to drop out the industry, weren't you?
Absolutely.
You'd lost trust, completely. Hope in the whole industry, the financial industry, if you like. You're about to go, you're looking at other places, and just on the back of that timing, when you're on your way, on your journey, and then that message comes in. I can't imagine how you must have felt about the industry at that point, particularly linked to the children and stuff. You just completely dropped out, weren't you, mentally? Yeah,
absolutely. Completely deflated. And it was almost like I felt like I was the only person. And actually, having joined the Mortgage Mum, if I listened to the majority of the people's stories from why they've kind of been drawn there, and other people within the industry as well, it's obviously it wasn't just me. There are so many people that feel like that, and that it's just impossible to kind of break down these kind of, it's really old school kind of views where it's, if you're not sat in an office 9 till 5, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to see enough clients. And I've had the best couple of years so far being at the Mortgage Mum, and I've written more business than I've ever written. And I write it when I want to write it. I go to every school assembly. I do 90% of the pickups. And yeah, I've never missing sports days, plays. My son was in an assembly the other day, and he was a spy. And I only knew about it 2 days before because I'd missed the email. But I managed to just kind of move things around in my diary myself and go along to his assembly. Did it affect my clients? No. Did it affect anything I was doing that week? No. It probably meant that I was sort of sat there for a couple of hours in the evening, sort of playing a bit of catch up, more than I would have done if I hadn't done that, but wouldn't change it for the world.
It shows that this potentially is the future, isn't it? You're seeing your living, breathing evidence of it, of not being the mum that misses the sports day, not being the mum that's not doing the pickups and stuff. You are the mum that's got the energy, the positivity, the warmth and love for the children. You can be there, but you can still be successful as well, rather than into that sort of legacy approach of where you've got to be sat at a desk for fixed hours and all of that. Great stuff.
I think it's interesting so when you say you felt so alone with it, because I think in the financial services industry, there are probably loads of women now listening, and maybe even men who are the kind of main breadwinner and actually child caregiver that are listening to this and thinking, God, I've felt like that. I'm sure there are a lot of people that can absolutely relate to what you're saying. And I think it's that community spirit, isn't it? And actually being brave enough to talk about it and be open about it is really admirable. Because
was that being brave? Because the first time around, where I can't remember the employer was, I suppose it doesn't really matter, but you weren't brave to say, were you?
I was saying thank you for someone telling me to be more flexible, and I was thinking, how do I do that?
When there's no flexibility, when it's a child getting picked up from school, there is no flexibility there. A school closes and that's it. So it is interesting, and I think as well, it's, as you said, it doesn't have to impact your workload. I guess the question I'd love to ask is, some people might be thinking that's amazing, but I still don't feel brave enough to take that leap, or how do you do it? How do you keep that still maintain that balance? I guess there's still a lot of juggling, isn't there? Being the mum and being a great mum, and then being a mortgage broker and being a great mortgage broker, and then having to work evenings. Where do you get balance from, Charley?
I think my balance, everyone's different, and I think balance looks very different, like different families. So I'm quite lucky in that my husband's job is quite flexible. sometimes. So sometimes he's around and he'll help with things as well, occasionally. But most of it does fall on me. But I think any family that has a child, one of you needs to have a flexible job. So if the financial services industry or any industry isn't being flexible and allowing people to work from home or part-time hours or different hours, then that's never going to work for families. And there's not many that can actually afford to have just one person working and the other person at home.
And you'll drop out the
now.
industry. We were talking just before about my wife, which was some years ago now, but she did the same thing. She applied for flexible working requests, not many hours, now a day less, and they came back with full-time or nothing. Therefore, she dropped out of that particular industry. They've completely lost her, and she was, obviously biased, but she was a good employee for them. So it just shows you're living proof of something that's gone the other way, and you found that the firm in the Mortgage Mum and that lifeline that they gave you, which is amazing.
Yeah. And think of how much she could have contributed all those years to that industry and that job. And actually, if a company is more flexible with someone, how much more kind of loyalty and if they said to her, fine, you can do this, or potentially you'll need to work a few hours, a couple of hours an evening, a couple of times a week, she'd probably have said, actually, I can do that. It's like thinking outside the box with flexibility as well. And you said, like, how does it work for me? I mean, a typical day, like yesterday, I've got my emails on my phone, which is probably not healthy when I'm on holiday, but it's something that I'm working on.
It's a difficult balance, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So I would do the school runs in the morning. I get home, and so on a Tuesday we have a Mortgage Mum sort of team meeting. So I had that yesterday morning. And then I had a few client appointments, phone calls, kind of eat at my desk during team meetings yesterday, which isn't every day, but that's kind of how it worked for me yesterday. And then I picked my daughter up from school in the afternoon, came home with her. We all had dinner together. And then my husband took my son out to football training. And then I sat at my desk last night doing an agreement of principle and a mortgage application for two different cases, answering emails. And my daughter sat next to me doing her homework. So actually, if you look at the hours that I've worked that day, it probably, on an average week, it probably does equate to full-time, if not more hours than it would be 9 till 5 in the office. But that sort of 2-3 hours last night where I sat there working at my desk, just chatting away to my daughter while I'm doing stuff, she feels like I'm present. And my client appointments usually are school hours or at 8 o'clock in the evening. So either when my kids are at school, so I can freely have because it's quite private, obviously it's money and with insurance to medical information and things like that. So I try and do it when it's just me in the house, or when everyone's gone to bed, which actually flexibility for colleagues and for employees also means flexibility for your clients as well. Because if someone said to me, I can do an appointment, but I need to do it at 6 o'clock in the evening, which is the structure that we had at previous companies before, I would think, okay, that's quite an annoying time because I've literally just got home, we're doing dinner, the kids will be interrupting me. But if we do it at 8 o'clock at night, actually everyone's settled down and I can sit down and have this kind of conversation.
And make sure clients more relaxed. I mean, when I was a mortgage advisor, I did my appointments anytime between I was quite structured. I worked for a building society, so it was very structured times. And it was the same. We did our appointments anytime between 8:30, 4:30. But your clients quite often weren't fully present because they'd be watching the clock thinking, well, I need to get back to work, or I'm only doing this on my lunch break, or my kids need to be picked up at this time. So they'd come in at, 2:30 and be like, right, well, I need to be out the door by 3:15. So the first bit that drops is your protection conversation, or that thoroughness with your client wanting to be open with you, because they don't have the mental time or space either during a working day. I mean, I've just had someone in my team purchasing a property recently, and it, it really took me back, because for their solicitor appointments, their mortgage appointments and things, they were getting really stressed about it. And they won't mind me saying, because they've shared, but they were getting really quite stressed about it, because they were like, how do I work full time for you during these days, plus do all these appointments that are only also during these working hours? And it is difficult. It makes life really hard to balance and juggle, doesn't it?
Think of the job that you're doing, and you're immersing yourself in your client's situation, their lives, looking at their dreams, aspirations. they need to you and them need to dedicate the time to it. So it's crucial that you're relaxed, you've got that time, and the same for them, which is and what I loved what you were saying there, when you were doing the appointment, we're doing some work, so probably case admin and stuff, that you had your daughter there doing the homework with you. So she was, whilst you were having nice time together, but you were both doing meaningful tasks that needed to be done, which was a lovely thing, because obviously getting kids to do homework sometimes can be an issue. It's nice that you're there and you're sort of doing that together. Yeah.
And I think if I wasn't working, I'd probably doing some housework or like doing other things around the house and stuff, and she'd be sat there by herself trying to do her maths. But I actually really like maths. I'm a bit of a geek like that as well. So I was learning about fractions and percentages and stuff, and I'm like, oh, actually, this is quite fun.
Relearning again, because I've forgotten that. There's videos
have you tried doing your SATs now? It would just, I'd be like, no.
I'm struggling.
Especially English. Like, it just goes right over my head, the English stuff.
That is the thing, though. The minute you qualify as a mortgage advisor or a financial advisor, people assume you're amazing at all these things. And it's very different.
I mean, everyone's got calculators, so that's,
It's getting over the fact that they can use, you can use calculators for that?
Yeah.
I know.
No, it's really nice.
Definitely. And in terms of the kind of the personable side of just, there's a couple of things I picked up. You mentioned voice notes, you like in the mortgage one being personable. I noticed on your LinkedIn, that's actually on your kind of little snippet is giving personable advice. What does that mean to you, and how do you bring that out in your kind of day-to-day work life and appointments?
Voice notes are huge, actually. I think it's a massive time saver. Being personal with the clients, you want to be able to, like you said, take the time. So like trying to squeeze people into these kind of old school times doesn't work. I'll sit there for an evening and I'll just say, I'm yours for as long as you need me, and just have that kind of conversation. But once you know somebody, so if someone emails you, you think, read this, and you think, I don't quite understand how they've said that, so probably a phone call would be better. But then they're working and I'm in an appointment, and we're kind of take like maybe a whole day to be able to get in with someone again to have that conversation. But I will quite often reply to messages and things just with voice notes, because I think your tone of voice is going to be really important there as well.
Totally. Yeah.
And sometimes you know how you would explain something to someone, and then you go to write it down in an email, and it can take you 10 minutes to kind of structure it so it sounds like what you're actually trying to say.
It's almost robotic sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah. So,
And that's because you haven't got the tone a voice, isn't it? That's why you keep restructuring it, and you think, oh, does that look right? Does that sound right? Should I put a comma here?
Am I coming across too abrupt? Am I coming across like I'm not answering their question? So I think voice notes, and I mean, when it's personal, when it's my friends, they will call them podcasts from me, because I just don't stop. But in general, answering client questions via voice notes, I find that quite often if I just text them back or email them back, sometimes they'll come back and ask another question. But if I just explain the whole subject, and it can just be a really quick kind of something back, and it can be something where I'm like, okay, I'm walking to the school run, I'll just voice note someone back quickly, and you can just really fit everything into your day and make sure you get back to everybody. Voice notes are one of my favorite things, and I never used them before joining the Mortgage Mum, and it's actually Sarah that introduced me to them. And I remember listening to her voice and thinking, this woman's lovely. But if I read the message, I would probably be thinking, okay, does she actually mean that? Is that like, do you know what I mean? So it's just really nice to sort of listen to, I guess you can get feelings across in voice notes.
It's that connection piece, isn't it? It's a lot stronger. I presume, I don't know how early on in the mortgage journey or protection journey, whatever, you're using the voice notes, but if you're building a relationship, firstly, they can see how warm and nice you are. Secondly, if you've got the relationship already, it's just galvanizing, isn't it? It's just keeping that connection, that warmth in the process.
And you said far easier to do on the go. I mean, I don't know about you. I cannot text and walk or text and do anything or email. I'm one of those, if I'm on a work call and I'm trying to do emails in the background whilst listening, I just can't do it. Whereas a voice note, it's like you can concentrate on it, can't you? And actually do it on the go far more easily. Yeah,
my friends used to sort of take the mick out of me a little bit, because I'd just very quickly message them back, and it'd be some complete gibberish that doesn't make any sense. And they're like, when you text me, I really have to decipher what you're saying. So now I just send a voice note, and it's so much easier because I don't have to, it's quicker as well, isn't it? So it's really makes my life a lot easier. And I think usually it's when things are, it's really emotive when you're buying a house. it's one of the most stressful things you can do, right? And I'm involved with lots of different people doing it all at the same time. Everybody's feeling the stress. And I think, having that tone of voice with a message really shows that you're kind of understanding what they're talking about, but also that you're kind of there with them. And I think it just helps with the stress.
That's huge. You get them, you're there with them, you're on the journey, arm round if they need it. Advice, information if they need it.
And I think especially the new build journey as well. I mean, as you've alluded to, that's fast paced. Now I remember whenever I got a new build appointment in my diary, I think, right, need to be on it with the timings on this one, because you know, they want the offer yesterday, don't they? And making sure it's all going through. So it's, that's, I guess, really key, that you can just make it feel like you're there, because it is stressful for any house buying process is stressful for any client. But I definitely think in that new build element, there is that heightened, because you've got all the searches, all the checks, there's so many moving pieces with that home, isn't there, as you go along the journey.
And people don't have the familiarity with the process, or most people don't, do they? Because they're not doing it regularly enough. So therefore, it's a little bit of unknown. They can't quite remember what searches are going to happen, what bit of paperwork's needed, who needs to be consulted, all of that. So immediately they're stressed just at the fact they're going to be changing.
It's overwhelming.
That's the word.
It is overwhelming. And I think some people think they know what it's like to buy a house because they've bought a house before. But even if you've bought a house 5-10 years ago, it might be completely different now. Certainly with like technology coming along, like most solicitors 5-10 years ago it's all paper forms and you send it off in the post and everything. And some things still do need to be like that, but quite a lot of it's like, okay, you download this app and you do it on here. And then, so I use WhatsApp for voice notes and things to contact clients, so much easier. But also on these apps, they can screenshot something and they message me and they circle it and say, what do I put here? And then I can reply like that. So it's kind of helping and assisting
Speeds things
in
up,
different
doesn't
ways.
it? As opposed
massively.
to years ago, you'd have a meeting, right? Okay, you literally go through it all, wouldn't you?
Yeah, come round to help. Like it's
I've just had this with my younger sister. She was a first time buyer, and it was actually a lender that I'd never come across or worked with much. And it was so funny. She sent me through all these pictures, like, which bits do I need to sign? What do I send back? And based on the lenders that I was used to, I was like, oh, you don't actually need to send that back. Your solicitor deals with that. And then 2 minutes later, she's like, I've just spoke to mortgage broker Hazel, for that lender, do you need to send that bit back? And then, so it's even trying to know like all the different lenders. And then I had to remind her, I was like, I have not advised in like 6 years, Lisa. Like, it's been a while. And it changes so rapidly. And that's where the value of you comes in, doesn't it? And talking about things always changing, obviously the other thing is you've got different schemes, different rate initiatives, especially that new build. So give us a bit of an update. What's going on in the new build world at the moment? What kind of schemes are available to people?
Yeah, so much. I don't think you necessarily hear enough about new build schemes, because there's some great ways. There's great ways for people to buy sort of more affordable homes, but also there's other schemes that are trying to help with kind of problems on the market at the moment. So, I mean, I've helped a couple of people recently purchase a property. What's called a discount market value scheme, where they're purchasing the property at a discount. So you purchase it 20% less than open market is the sort of norm. And then when you sell that property, you then sell it at that 20% discount as well. So it's about keeping kind of affordable housing for local people available, but it meant that she could buy or they could buy sort of a little bit of a bigger home that was more suited to them at that time, because they couldn't stretch.
And
to
that's
that
only
kind
applicable
of
for local people, that discount.
So when it's first bought, so it's making sure that it's local people getting these properties. So that's really exciting. The other thing at the moment that I feel is really big is people are worried about interest rates. So we've been working closely with a company called O'Neill, and they've brought out a sort of product called Rate Reducer, which is just trying to fix the problem of higher interest rates on the market. And if you're purchasing a new build property, builders will quite often offer you incentives to purchase the property. And what you can do, the sort of Rate Reducer scheme, you use that incentive from the builder to reduce your interest rate on your mortgage. So instead of using it for carpets or to put towards an extra deposit and things, you can actually save money on your mortgage payments. And O'Neill essentially acts as sort of a bit of a platform between the builder and the lender to make sure that you're saving that much money. So we've recently done a few of these, but there is like it can save hundreds of pounds each month on your mortgage, and it's a really, really great way to kind of make that move affordable. So lots of people who potentially might have had 5 or longer year fixed at the moment are coming off of historically really low rates and are hit with a market that's just a bit different than they're used to. And maybe it was their plan to move at this point, but they're looking at the interest rates thinking, actually, maybe now's not the time, or we weren't kind of prepared for quite that high monthly repayment. And the Own New scheme just means that you can use the sort of rate reducer product to move into a new build property and keep those payments down. And with a new build as well, it's going to be greener. So cost of kind of running those properties should be lower as well. So it's a really, really great way to kind of help people afford these properties.
And you've got all your guarantees and things as well, don't you?
Yeah.
So you're kind of reducing that risk of dodgy DIY, anything.
Yeah.
We've just had that with my sister's new one as well. Where you're just, you're reducing all those risks, aren't you?
Yeah.
Of anything going majorly
Absolutely.
wrong. Or if it does, you've got that reassurance that you're not going to have big unexpected costs.
Yeah.
So I totally get that for people who are worried about rates, monthly payments. What what a great scheme for them to be able to go into. And it won't be right for everyone, but for those that are, that's their main driver is, I can't move because of that rate. That's unlocking that opportunity for them, isn't it?
I'm interested, does it help you with other areas as well? So say, for example, firstly up front, it's really important to get that trust. This is another way in terms of the knowledge that you're bringing to the table of gaining that trust of a client. So therefore, if you've gained them some sort of rate reduction there, does it make other conversations, say, for example, the protection conversation, whether they've got a plan B in place or anything like that to make sure, they can keep that property that you've helped them buy? Does that help in those conversations? And if so, in what way?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two sides to that. I think definitely with the savings, if you've saved someone £300-400 a month on their mortgage, and it's kind of, you've gone through their budget planner with them because you will have kind of already done all of these things. Right, we're saving this much money on your mortgage. This is the sort of protection areas that I want to talk to you about. These are the gaps in your protection. These are the risks that you're taking. And if you've kind of saved the money in this area and you can show them the true value of the protection, it's usually going to be that you're saving them more money than what that's going to cost. So it usually that really helps in terms of like the monthly payments. I do think that helps. I think if we go back to the trust and the voice notes and the being personable, I know my clients. And actually it's quite funny as a mortgage broker, because I do mortgage and of course insurance as well, is I know their medical history, I know their employment history, I know their address history, I know like everything about these people. And also obviously you speak to them a lot. So you sit there for hours sometimes just chatting away to them, talking about what they're doing now, but also to work out what mortgage you want, you also want to know what their future goals are. So I know probably more about these people than I feel like I actually know about myself, because it's like a bit of therapy, I guess, because I know what their goals are, what they look forward to, what they're wanting to do in the future, whether or not they think, in a few years I want to start my own business, or whether they're looking to have children. The amount of people and clients that I know they're pregnant before their friends do is insane, because they kind of open up and they say, all right, this is the plan, or this is what we're doing. And I think when you have that kind of level of trust and you talk to your clients like they're your friends, but in a professional way, I guess, that's what really helps with those conversations, because my clients know that I'm not a salesperson. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to listen to what you want, help you get to where you want to get to in terms of your house, but also to make sure that financially you're secure and that your future is kind of looked after. And that is with the protection. I mean, if you want to buy a house, you have to have a mortgage, right? But it's about that trust and that.
I'm definitely hearing here that yes, price is an element, and yes, these schemes can help if you've got more budget to play with, but actually if you've not done that groundwork, built that trust, actually taken the time to get to know the client behind the numbers and behind that mortgage, you can save them all the money in the world, they're not going to buy into that protection conversation anyway. That's what I'm hearing from you there. So I think it's great that you've addressed that, because a lot of people will say, price is the barrier, that's the thing that's difficult for me, or they don't have the budget. But actually, you're right. If someone trusts you implicitly and you know them, as you said, better than sometimes they'll know each other. Let's be honest, when it's a couple, there'll be things they don't know about each other as well. Why wouldn't they listen to you and want to take that advice on board?
And you being, I was only doing a training session yesterday where we were talking about knowing your clients. And I personally believe that mortgage advisors, mortgage brokers, mortgage and protection brokers will know their clients better than anyone, and you're living proof of that. You do. And in order to have a conversation with them where you can educate them on the pitfalls and help them in the planning and go along that journey with them, so that they've everything, if any sort of things happen in life, when life happens, as one of my colleagues used to say, comes along, then they've got that financial safety net in place. It's absolutely crucial. So it's great to hear that you're sort of living proof of that happening, and it's not still something that learnt in training years ago, and it's been a while since I've advised, obviously. So I was doing that, but the way you're doing it now with some of the technology you've got all the different ways of contacting the clients, helping them with processes and signing up is really, really lovely to hear, and just great to see in terms of how you're doing it with such a flexible company as well, that are forward thinking.
In terms of what we ask kind of everyone that comes into our podcast is, what would be your one tip to other advisors, intermediaries, or whoever you want to give advice to? What would be your one piece of advice to a listener of this episode?
I think probably my one piece of advice, certainly for any parents or women particularly in this industry, is that there are places that you can have that flexibility. You don't have to be in an office 9 till 5. Obviously, being self-employed, it gives you a lot more flexibility there. And there is obviously, I know it's commission-based most of the time, and it can be a bit scary. But to push through those barriers and to kind of question things and to stand up for yourself as well, because there are plenty of companies out there now who are flexible, and it can work around your families. And I'm hoping that lots more people will stick with it and to kind of try and bend those rules a little bit to make sure that they're able to continue their careers in whatever they're looking to do, particularly in mortgages, because it is doable. And yeah, when you find somewhere that you're happy, you'll know you're in the right place.
I'm sure that's going to be really reassuring for a lot of people to hear, and really inspiring that you were brave enough and you kept going and you did that, and you've now got a really successful career as head of new build at such a thriving company. So thank you so much for coming in, Charlie. I think that's been an absolutely brilliant episode, and yeah, I really enjoyed hearing about your journey.
Thank you, Charlie. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.